We
Yeah, good
have
project. About 60 students, and we've had them create portfolios that show basically all the work they've done throughout the semester. That's the one place that they turn everything in. So their life story, their any assessments that they do, they write a reflection on there. They post the PDF of their results. Their resumes, cover letters, any appointments that they've gone to, networking things that they've done. And so we created a template at the beginning and said, here's what we'll be grading and here's where it will go within the education, and then they then use that portfolio to create portfolios of their own. And so I can then go into each one of those and see what assignments they've done.
Okay, so you created kind of a model
Yes.
portfolio for them.
Yeah, just
that
so
had
I knew
all
where
of
to
the
look. We've
content
noticed
in
it.
it
Yeah,
to start
exactly.
with?
So it would say, okay, well, here's where you're going to post your marketing materials.
Gotcha.
So within that, it'll be your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn link, and then they all then uploaded their work into that spot on their portfolio.
Okay, great. And
Yeah.
so did they start, I'm just curious, we have some other career services group with some of the kind of prompts that you're talking about, like the networking events. Are they supposed to log hours for that, or are you mostly looking for more of a narrative description?
Ours is more of a narrative. So with our class, we require them to go to a certain number of events throughout the semester. So career fairs or information sessions with employers, things along those lines, and then also career counseling appointments. And so what they're posting on that is kind of, well, one, they have to post what employers they're going to see at the career fairs and the questions that they're going to ask, and then a reflection of how it went, and, if any, some of our students got internships from the fair, so just kind of a reflection of what happened at the fair, how they felt, things like that. So not so much hours, but more so of a reflection to help them. The course is kind of trying to figure out what possible career paths they could have and what they're doing to work towards each one of those all at the same time.
Okay. And do you have a lot of, are there exercises that they complete? Because I know some of the other career services groups we work with, sometimes they have students fill out surveys and forms.
So ours is similar to more so assessments than surveys. Is that what you're referring to? So like the MBTI or the Strong, or they do Strengths Finder. They did Youth Science this year, which tests their aptitudes and their interests to give them overall careers that they might be interested in. So we're doing more so of that self-reflection than survey.
Okay. And do they usually publish the results from those things in their
They
portfolio?
do, yeah. They've posted the PDFs in there.
Are their portfolios being shared with any of the employers that are coming to the career fairs?
So not shared with them. They can. That's what we're kind of telling them, is you can use this information to then share with employers if you want. Right now it's more so just for the class. And then they'll talk with employers about the things that the exercises they've done within their portfolio.
Right.
Yeah. So more so just talking points rather than actually sharing
Sharing it. Okay.
Yeah.
University of Notre Dame just reminds me, they had a competition with their students. Are they submitting the portfolios to you, or do you really look at their live portfolios?
So it's their live portfolio, I think. So what we did was we added them into the course, and so they're updating that, and then I can go into
just
the
go to that
course
roster
and see all of
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So at this school, they had the students, they basically had some, it was more around career preparedness, and they had designed some criteria for the students to complete as part of their portfolio development, similar to what you're describing. But they had the students, when they had basically completed all of that criteria, submit the portfolio to an assessment group that had a team of reviewers that were given rubrics, and they went in and reviewed all of the students' portfolios. And from the collection of portfolios, they chose 10 students that they felt like had the best presentations. and sent links to those to the employers that were coming to the career fair, so they had early access to those students.
That's awesome.
And so when the employers got to the career fair, they recognized the students because they usually have pictures of themselves in the portfolio, and immediately were like, hey, I was reading your essay about, XYZ, or I saw your project about this, and
I could definitely see it being useful for our counselors too, because oftentimes when we have students come in, if they could just send like a link to their, here's my cover letter, my resume, everything, I need help with LinkedIn, here's my link, and it's all in one place. That's what I like about the students. It makes it easy to see everything.
It makes it easy. So right now, it sounds like they're not doing any formal submissions to you. So how are you kind of keeping track of their progress?
There are dates. So basically we have, in our syllabus, we have dates that certain things are due, and so then just the next day, that's when I go in and I check their
browse through
portfolios.
them. Yeah. Okay. Because there is an option if you wanted them to basically kind of hand it in to you through Digication. There is a tool where you could do that.
And they would hand in a certain piece of the portfolio?
They could just submit a certain area, so you wouldn't have to navigate.
Oh, is she?
That group is, that's, in fact, but I don't, it was having some problems with it, I noticed, but that is the process that.
Okay, so if I were gonna say the resume is due tomorrow, they would then each send it to me, and would that come in an email, or that would go through, like
You can get an email notification, but instead of going to the live portfolio, it basically takes kind of a snapshot of it. So they still have their live portfolio, but you have a copy of what it is that they submitted to you, and when they go through that, when they go through that process, they can choose whether they want to submit the whole thing, or they can just select a certain section or page. So it can be a time saver. The students need a little coaching in how to actually do the submission, because not all students have done that before. But they do it right from their portfolio tools menu. And it sounds like you've already defined basically eportfolio assignments that they're completing. So it might be a good fit for you.
I like that.
How do I share the screen here? It looks like that's you. I can show you what your view would look like.
That'd be great.
How many students at a time are you kind of?
So we have 60 this semester. Next semester we'll have about 50 in ours, and then about 30 in the other one.
And you'll continue to use Digication.
Yeah.
Because I think this would be a big time saver for you.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're only looking at 10 students, then it's fine to just navigate to their live portfolio. But I think that this would be really useful for you. And what you'll probably do is you could either put them in a community, or it sounds like this is kind of course oriented anyway. Okay. So that can be set up, and once you create these ePortfolio assignments once, you can reuse them in your other courses, so you can just copy them over.
Would that be the template, or this as assignments?
They'll be ePortfolio assignments. So basically all of those.
That's nice.
And it might be that these align with certain sections and pages that are within the portfolio already.
Yeah, definitely.
And you can choose if you want to give them feedback through here too. You can either do written feedback. If you were using rubrics, those can be added in. But you'll have all of the students, and then you can see all of the assignments along the top, and this is all color coded, so you know which students have actually submitted and who hasn't. And
can you tell who submits it late?
well, you can set a deadline. If you want it to lock after the deadline. You would probably have students invariably every time contacting you. But everything that gets submitted is date and time stamped. So you'll know. You'll know when you look at it. And it will include a link to whatever parts of the portfolio they submitted to you. So if you just needed them to work on their cover letter and you just needed to review that part, when you click on this, it would just pull up the part of their portfolio that had the cover letter in it.
would be.
And then you're not,
Yeah.
you're not navigating through, cause I think right now you're probably going through a lot of
Find
clicks
it.
Yeah.
to get to
Well,
what
that's
you
what
need to
we,
review.
that's what, well, the template was really helpful in that aspect, cause I know exactly
You
where
know-
to
know
go
it's
every time.
organized.
This still would,
Yeah,
yeah,
you
like I
still
know where to
can drill
find it,
down.
whereas last semester, it was kind of all over
Oh,
the
right,
place.
paper.
And it took,
Yeah.
but we still had it online, we had a blog, like a
Oh, did you?
WordPress,
Oh,
so
you
we
did
did last
WordPress.
semester, but everyone created their own, and
Yeah,
it
right,
could be
and you
all
showed
over
me
the
that.
place,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
It could be all over the place, so, yeah, this has been really helpful, but that
There's
would be
a
even more helpful.
little bit of design in putting the assignment together,
Mhm.
and it's got, the workflow, I
Mhm.
found,
It has
some little bit, you need some coaching to.
Yeah, it has,
understand.
so each assignment, I'll kind of step through one so you can see it, but when you create an assignment, it has a name and a description, so I'll just call this cover letter.
So in the course, I don't know if you remember when we created the course, we had the option to also add assignments, grade book, and
I
tools
do remember
like
that, yeah.
So this is the assignments.
Yeah.
Right. And each of the assignments that you create will have an evidence step, and that's what creates basically that kind of Dropbox for the students to
Okay.
submit to you. So you can relabel these, they don't have to be called my evidence, so you can like submit your cover letter section. And then this is where you could set the deadline if you wanted it to lock, but you also have an option if you wanted students to be able to resubmit. So if they submitted something to you and then
Yeah.
you gave them feedback, they could go in and revise it and resubmit it. So you can optionally allow for changes. And then, so this is the simplest setup. That creates the submission area. If you did want to provide them with feedback through here, you can add other kinds of assessment steps.
Could you go over that again? Because, okay, so the
Yeah.
first step is simply for them to submit the work. You still
Yes.
can respond to it. Right? What's the difference between this do you have to create the feedback here in order for you to respond back to them?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
the first is just a tool for them to submit.
that creates
And
an
that's all
area
it
for
does.
them to submit to you.
Right, but there's no,
No.
communication
Because
with
there's,
them
yeah,
yet,
so
right?
there's some programs that use this as basically the place to collect all of the work,
Material
but
and
they
assess
do
that
assessments
elsewhere.
at a program
I see.
level with our committee tools. So it just kind of depends on how they're
Right.
using
But in a
it.
classroom setting, you have to add the response tool as well, so
Yeah.
you can respond.
Because there's different types of assessment, so you can add in
Hi, Karen, come on
rubric
in.
steps. Hi Karen, good to see you. If you wanted students to do their own assessments, you can add in rubrics for them too. The reflection steps are what you would add in if you were just gonna give them written feedback. Yeah, and that provides you with a text area and also an option to upload files, so. And then there's an option for self-reflection here too, although most often the reflective writing is happening on the portfolio itself. There were some programs that needed a separate step for the ability to have it as basically a separate data point for their reports.
Mhm.
So that's why we supported that there. But I always encourage as much as possible to have the reflection as part of that body of work within the portfolio. And then for those that are doing any kind of standards or learning outcomes based assessments, you can fold that into the assignment workflow as well. And you can add multiple types of assessments. So if you wanted a student to do their own self-assessment using a rubric, you can add that in, and then you could also add a reflection step. So they can be very simple, but especially we find in writing courses where students might be doing revisions, sometimes they'll have the students submit a first draft of something, and then there'll be written feedback, and then they'll submit again, and then they'll do a standards or learning outcomes based assessment, so you have the ability to kind of design it to fit your needs there. But similarly, this is create this step. You can relabel that, reflection is not always the language that people wanna use there, so you can put in something more custom. And then you'll choose which step you're actually gonna be assessing. So once you've built this once, you can reuse it. And especially if you have a more complicated workflow, sometimes faculty will create one, add it to a course multiple times, and then just change the labels on it. Yeah. And once you've created it, it gets added to kind of an assignment library, so you can just pull it into
How do you
another
save
course.
that as an assignment library, or is it?
It does it automatically, yeah, so
and then-
once,
Yeah, how do you get it?
yeah, once you create, when you go to the add assignment area, you can browse any of the existing assignments
Ah, okay.
from your other
Okay.
courses. And I have a bunch in here, just cause this is a
Yeah.
sample, but when you choose a course, it will show you all of the assignments that you had.
I see.
And you can select all, so if you were gonna duplicate everything again, you can do that really easily, or you can kind of cherry pick the ones that you wanna add in, and then it'll copy all of the steps,
That are already.
and it'll add it into the course, yeah.
Kelly, this is Karen James.
Yeah, good to see you.
French department,
Mhm.
and just joining us now.
Yeah,
so
thank
thanks.
you. Oh, it's okay, no, I understand, I appreciate your time today. I was hearing that we're getting very close to the end of the semester here, so I'm,
feels
it's
like
a,
it.
it's a
Feels like
busy
it.
time. It's a busy time. So, so we were just discussing, right now she has a lot of students that are developing their portfolios and she's reviewing them quite frequently.
Right.
But hadn't seen some of the assessment tools that are there that I think
60
will help,
students,
yeah, help
Yeah.
streamline
Wow.
things a bit.
Jessica, this is Karen.
Hi.
Good to see you,
This
right?
is perfect for me because I'm not familiar with the assessment tools yet.
Yeah, so
I
you
know
walked
that
in
it's
at the perfect
a
time.
huge thing. It's
Yeah,
gonna
it
be
is
super
gonna be
helpful to
big.
us.
Yeah, you walked in at a good
Yeah.
time. So, so there is a little bit of setup involved initially. Our support team does lots of consultation, and you have wonderful Yitna here too. who's, had some experience with this, but any coaching that you might need to get things set up initially while you're getting used to the new tools, we do lots of webinars and whatever hand-holding you might need. If you have, you already have your ePortfolio assignments that they're going through,
Yeah.
so for you, it's just about kind of translating that into the tool, so.
Could we also get, like, if a bunch of us wanted to get together and meet, like, online or something? we could
Yeah.
meet virtually?
Yeah, I do lots of,
Specifically on the
Yeah.
assignment.
yeah, I do lots of
You'll have
Adobe
lots of
Connect
experience.
webinars,
So-
yeah,
So that might be a good, like, we could have a lunch and learn kind of.
Yeah.
Talking about that.
totally.
That would be good.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we can, and if people want to bring their laptops and click through it while I'm showing
Mhm.
things, you can, because it just helps to kind of model a few. And it's easy if you wanted to set up just kind of a sample course for yourself that was just kind of your playground area. You're the only one that's going to see it, so you can, really
Well, we could, like,
experiment.
share it, like, I could share with you my
Mhm.
screen and you could be projecting it, we could be talking about
Yeah.
something up there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we can
Oh,
definitely
cool.
set that up. Yeah, as much help you need, because I know this part requires more.
Thinking.
It does. It require. There's more kind of just strategic thinking
Right,
about
right.
what you want to model, and
Yeah.
then there's the learning of the technology.
Mhm.
So.
And then you have to show the students also how to submit.
Yeah, and then
this,
from the student perspective, you actually have a very easy way that you can see each student's view in here too. So you can click on any student,
That's nice.
and they have a very simple list view of all of their ePortfolio assignments, and their view's color coded too, so they can see which things are still open, which are waiting to be reviewed by you, which have been completed. And this is where they can get to all of their assessments also. So if you've given them any written feedback, I'm still in the faculty view right now, but they can see anything that you've added.
This
And
would
then
be
due
good.
date, if we put a due date on there, can they see that?
Yeah.
Within it too?
Mhm.
Okay.
For those that are doing any kind of standards or learning outcomes-based assessments, in the standards tab, you have a similar view that will list all of the different standards and learning outcomes. And as you start to complete those assessments, whether they have met, partially met, or not met those outcomes too, so you can track things on both levels.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank
nice to
you,
see
it's
you.
good to see
But
you.
I wanna arrange one of those.
Yeah,
meetings
yeah,
and
we
have
can-
a
we
conversation.
will reconnect
Yes.
online, yeah.
Okay, I'll see you in a little bit,
That'll
nice
be
to
fun.
see you, though. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
And you may have already mentioned this, but you can import rubrics or build rubrics?
You'll
from
build,
there?
yeah, you'll need to build them into the tool.
Mhm.
It's a very simple, and I'd be happy to share that with you. So let's just, each rubric step
Yeah.
as a rubric builder option.
The
And it's
eyesight is not what it used to be.
No, I understand. And it's just a very simple table builder. So you can add in the rows and the columns. The columns along the top will be where you have the different levels, and you can associate a value with each one. And then the rubric criteria will be along the left side, and you can put in all of your descriptions there. So again, there's a little bit of setup. Yeah, you can paste in. Yeah, so there'll be a little bit of a copy paste exercise. But our support team's happy to help with that too. So sometimes when people are new, you know, if you want some things set up while you're learning other tools, you can always send things over to us. But once it's created, it becomes part of a rubric library, similar to the assignments library. So you can just add it into other assignments really easily. You don't always have to build it again. And we do have options with the rubrics to have weighted rows. That was something that we rolled out this year, especially education programs, it seemed, had a lot of complicated weighting with their rubrics, so we've included that now too. And it's a good idea to name your rubrics. If they're always called my rubric, it gets hard to choose them from the library. So that's just a little advice. So, but yeah, once they're saved, it will get attached to that assignment, but becomes part of your library so that you can re-add it to other assignments in this class, but also to other courses that
Do
you
you
might
have
have.
an institutional library?
No, but that's something that I would love if there. So what we do have is that because so many campuses we work with use the AAC&U value standards and rubrics, and sometimes maybe collaborating with each other on assessment projects. So we work with, so for instance, in the state of New York, we work with a majority of the CUNY schools, and they have similar learning outcomes and also sometimes want to do things at more of a state level. So we have the ability to sample work from multiple systems and also copy and transfer standards and learning outcomes things. So right now it's not something that the schools access, but we have a library that makes it easy for things to be added
So you
into
can
other
get
systems.
others, right,
Yeah.
but it's not UVA by itself.
Right. You can't go in and say, oh, let's see what learning outcomes ASU has. But I think that kind
So
of
it
collaboration,
could
if schools opted into something like that,
Yeah.
I think that would be,
And a lot of times, especially
a
once
wonderful
you use
community.
these for evaluating people, it's good to know what was the rubric that was used for them to get the correct
Right.
grade or evaluation
Yeah.
they got. That'd
yeah,
be right.
absolutely.
So we have a lot of rubrics that we use now, we just keep them for, within our language program in a collab site that we have for instructors at that particular level. So that would be great if there were some kind of, I mean, we can still have those collab sites, but there'd be a lot of cutting and pasting every
Right,
time.
yeah.
If there's a way for us to
Yeah,
have
so
a
what you can do,
shared
yeah,
library.
so what programs will do is they'll create a community in Digication. So it's
Okay.
not a course, it's a community for the program. And you can add all of the faculty members into that community. And people can build ePortfolio assignments. They can add rubrics there. They can add ePortfolio templates that might be used there. And those all become shared resources.
And then you can use, if you also have a course elsewhere outside of the community, your connection with the community will
Allows you to
get-
pull things from it, exactly, yeah. Yeah. And then we also have tools, at some point this might be useful for you, you know, typically within programs, especially larger programs, there may be some project leaders that are kind of doing the design of what they want to collect from the students and how they want to review it. So sometimes they'll have a community where they've modeled a lot of things and they do share it with faculty members, but they preload things into individual courses for them, so it's kind of hands-off. It's been designed ahead of time, the program already knows what its requirements are, so faculty members don't have to do the setup, they automatically have spaces that have been created for the submissions to
So
take
in the
place.
same way that we create a template for our classes,
Very
we have
similar.
a course director that can create a basic template.
Right, yeah,
That's cool.
they could create
With
the
this
course
key-
and
with
copy
common
in,
rubrics,
yeah, they can
Just to
copy.
save labor.
It is,
I
yeah,
love that idea.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, we work with some really large schools where there's a lot of, where they may have sections of courses that have 300 students in them, so they
Mhm.
divide it up among the TAs. And the TAs aren't responsible for creating all of those things, they
Mhm.
just need to make sure that the students are doing their submissions.
Mhm.
So they can track those things, but they don't have to do any of the setup. So
Mhm.
it makes it really easy to roll things out. And then other smaller programs sometimes will design things in advance and preload it, but communicate to the instructors, if you want to customize this, you know, we're not telling you what you have to do in your
Mhm.
class, but we're giving you some tools that then you can kind
Yeah.
of
Basic,
build
because
from,
they
yeah.
would otherwise just have to add, they have to use them anyway, so.
Right, yeah,
Saving us
you
time.
know you need to collect
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
You know, the program is all on the same page there, but I know that sometimes just the culture, you don't want to tell an instructor, this is what you have to do for your assignment. So you can load in something quite general and tell them, you can change the description, this can be labeled very differently. If you wanted to add other e-portfolio assignments, you can.
Mhm.
So, so you're not restricting them, you're just giving them some tools that they can start with, and that can be helpful. So with copying things into the other courses, someone could either do that for them in advance, or on the administration side, there's the ability to push out to multiple courses. So that's something our support team can help with, or anyone that has admin access to your system can help with.
One question we have related to
Mhm.
this is we're getting ready to do a large-scale evaluation
Mhm.
of portfolios made in WordPress.
Yes, and I know we've had a
So,
little back and forth.
But we haven't
on
really, I haven't really actually tested it completely, I just
that. Mhm.
saw that the tool was in place.
Mhm.
So is there anything we need to be aware of in doing this? So that opens WordPress in a separate window.
Yeah, so what will
Is it-
happen, and I think my
It's in the
suggestion
editor, right? Yeah.
was that when you're in the assignment area, I'll go into the student view here. So when they make their submission, rather than selecting a portfolio here, you can go into the rich text area and put in the link to
Yeah,
the
just a link that they give
WordPress
us, okay.
site, yeah. So that will get archived. Because you're doing more of a committee-based review rather than an individual instructor in a course,
Right.
what you'll start to make use of are our committee assessment tools. And that's in a separate area, because sometimes there's reviewers that might be part of a assessment that may not even be at your institution.
I see. So where did you go for that?
That is at assessment.digication.com, and I'll go to my fictitious Digication University here. So, this has not been set up for your school yet, so,
Okay.
because you haven't used this area, but we can create a space for your school, and different programs can have their own space, and different
With-
programs can have different administrators.
Okay.
So you could have access to all of them, but then some of the other programs might have other admins that are managing
That's fine.
things, yeah.
Okay.
And then what we do in this area is that we pull from all of the archived work that's been submitted. In this case, it's gonna be links to the WordPress sites.
Who
We
is
do
it
the,
submitted to? Is it to a course?
it could be
or-
submitted to a course or an assessment group,
or
it doesn't
an
matter,
assessment group? On
yeah.
the other side,
Yeah.
the UVA
Mhm.
information, okay.
Yeah, and we do the sampling, so you just kind of let us know the criteria. We basically have a very simple kind of questionnaire, and once you've gone through this a couple times, you're gonna know exactly what information we're looking for. But we basically just need to know, what do you wanna name the sample? How many samples do you want to pull? So sometimes a program might have collected 2,000 submissions during a semester, but they want to just pull from that maybe just 200 to
Okay.
present to their team.
Mhm.
Yeah. If there was a specific e-portfolio assignment that you were targeting, you can let us know which one. Otherwise, we can pull from anything that's within that course. So
Right.
it can be very random or it can be very specific, yeah.
Okay, so we can actually, could it be a list of specific
Mhm.
portfolios? Okay.
Yep. Yeah. You
So
can,
then they get pulled,
yep, they
they
get
get
pulled, yep, and then the admin or our support team will set up the reviewers, and the reviewer view, when they log in, just looks like this. So they have a very simple list view of all of the submissions that they're responsible for. And typically a submission will get reviewed by 2 or 3 people, so you can see if
Right.
everyone's on the, same page with the scoring. So they'll just click on a sample. You'll have, with the WordPress sites, you're gonna have a link here that they can click on that will open the WordPress site,
Okay.
yeah. If a student had submitted a portfolio through Digication, it will open right here, yeah. And then they can open up the rubric, they'll see all the rows and columns there. And there's an option to add in written comments too. So if you wanted everyone to write something in addition to the scoring, they can do that. And then they just click Save and Next, and they can go to the next sample that's on their list.
so they basically have access to the whole portfolio, and the rubric is for the whole portfolio, not for elements in it.
Well, it
pages.
depends on the submission. So if you ever did any kind of
Right,
committee
right.
review and you wanted to just pull a sample of all of the cover letters that students had done over the last 3 years, just to see, are students really doing the writing that we expect, or do we need to change something about our instruction? Because the students, if they were using that submission area, had just been submitting the cover page
Right.
part of their portfolio, then that's what would be
So
presented
it's however
here.
granular
It's
you
all
are
based
in
on what the student,
submission.
what the student.
And in our
did.
case, it's the link, so it's the whole portfolio.
Right.
That's good.
This is great,
Yeah,
yeah.
But that's a nice layout, though, that's good to have. the
Yeah,
rubric
and we're
right
working on some new grading interfaces just in our core tool that are gonna be a bit more like this too, where you have the portfolio and then you have a panel that has
Oh,
the
in the-
rubrics
in
and
part
things,
of the
that's the
site.
things that are
Sort of
gonna work.
opens up.
Yeah,
So, so this is for large scale.
yeah, anytime you
But
have,
you could do
a
this
committee.
in the site, couldn't you?
you
With an
could
assessment
set
group?
up, an assessment group and you could have multiple reviewers because you can create multiple assessment steps.
Right, and just give them each,
Yeah.
well, I mean, they
You'd have
have
to,
to pick the
what
one.
most people do is they'll label the step
Label
with their name, so
Yeah.
they know. But that doesn't allow the reviews to be kind of blind, because if they're all in the same group together, they can do the scoring in their step, but they could also
See.
open the other steps. So if you really want a kind of private space for the reviewers, this is the way to go. And it's a situation where they might not be assessing everything. So if you pull 200 samples and you had 20 reviewers, they might only have, they're not responsible for looking at all 200.
Right,
Yeah, so.
yeah, this is definitely a much more controlled environment, it's probably worth doing it, because I was imagining figuring out some way to.
Yeah, this is the way to go. And the reviewers, it's like we have a handout that kind of steps them through the different screens. It's a 2-page handout. It's just so easy just to get to the samples. And
Yeah.
there's some programs that will set up a fake one first that they use for norming purposes. But it also gets people used to the technology a little bit before they go and
Yes,
do
we
their
do that, right.
first real one.
So is there, how do you do that? Just the
Same
same process,
way,
just
yeah.
different set
And we
of-
just call it norming.
It's a different set of,
Yeah.
portfolios
Yeah,
that you're looking
yeah,
at.
and it gives everybody a chance to get their feet wet a little bit and see how it works. You can look at the scores together
Balance your.
and see,
thinking.
are we really on the same
That's good
page?
planning on
that.
Did we run it, did we have conflicts with the rubric when we were, maybe we
Right.
need to change some language before we have our real thing. And then those that have admin access can export the reports. And it gives you an option to filter it out. So if you wanted to not include the reviewers' names, for instance,
good.
you could leave that out.
And does this do, the calculation of, rubric grades, if there were,
It
rate
doesn't.
rating?
It doesn't do. So it's not going to say whether they passed or not, but it'll include the per row rubric scores, and if you wanted to, as well as the overall rubric score. And there's a normal view and also an aggregate view.
Okay.
And we had a school recently that needed this in a JSON format, because I think they were importing the
Processing
data
it.
here into some other analytics tool that they were using, so we support that now too. But the CSVs, people have lots of fun with. Yeah, they have lots of fun with those. So, yeah, so there's this
Okay,
whole other layer that helps facilitate.
How do we
Those
get this
bigger-
started? Should I just write?
Yeah, you can just write to the
and say-
support desk, yeah,
Should we
and,
try to do it for our workshop, our assessment workshop in May?
For the workshop? We
For
could.
the norming for the Spanish and the
Oh, yeah,
French?
yes, this is
Yeah.
the way we're gonna do it,
Yeah, excellent.
yeah.
'Cause
Definitely I'll get
it
it done
matches
before then,
exactly
but
what-
yeah.
Mhm.
yeah,
Probably have to start soon, cause it's in May 17th or so,
Mhm.
about a month.
Yeah, the concept is simple, but.
yeah, well, it
But you
just
gotta do the
takes,
work.
yeah, I know, and the first time, there's
Yeah.
you gotta learn the different parts and how they kinda connect together, but once you.
But this still isn't huge numbers, so. we should-
No, and it will be more selective, we already have
Mhm.
sort of the ones we want, so it's not gonna be.
You've narrowed it
yeah,
down
okay.
already, yeah.
Jessica, did you have any other questions that you, things, areas you were?
Questions? No, this was super helpful.
Yeah,
The
that's
assignment
good.
Part will really help us, I think.
Yeah, and if you would like, more training on how to create the courses and the assignments, we're very happy to provide that, so.
Alright.
Yeah.
Perfect.
What,
So it's with the Career Center. We do a liberal arts seminar, World of Work. They're kind of the students are designing their future, so doing self-assessments and networking and cover letters, resumes, all of that good stuff. And that's second and third years, and then there's a fourth year course that's kind of doing the same thing. So those are the two. We may also use there's a new course, Liberal Arts in the Health Professions, that will be, I think there's 60 students, so we may end up using it for that one too, next semester, so, yeah.
Yeah, do you have a sense of whether the students are using education on their own as well? I mean, beyond the requirements of the course?
I'm not sure if they are or not. I could definitely ask for that feedback.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Because if they are, since it's a career-oriented activity, they may want to actually produce the portfolios that they would use or send to prospective employers and so forth, so beyond in addition to what they're doing. So it might be a good.
Yeah, and can they, so if they wanted to create a new one and then bring pieces of their current one over, is that pretty easy?
Yeah, there's, let me jump back over here, there's where's the tab, where was editing things? Here we go. So each portfolio they create, they do have the ability to duplicate, so they can make a copy. So that'll copy the whole thing.
Yeah.
But there's also an organize tool. So if they created a brand new portfolio and wanted to just kind of curate things out from the portfolio that they created with you, they could select the parts that they wanted in their more kind of showcase portfolio and then just drag it over and choose where they want that material to be. So they can do that with sections, pages, and individual modules.
And that's copying.
Yeah, this is in the
that's a
organize tool, yeah. You can just move stuff, if you wanted to move it out, yeah. If you wanted to leave it in one and also have it display in the other, then you.
And some have found it easy to actually reorganize their portfolios
Yeah,
here.
Exactly,
Then you
because
can
sometimes
move
you
it
get
in.
started and you have a certain idea about how you want things organized and then you may want to change it. That's in portfolio tools,
Tools.
Okay.
up here at the top.
big-
Yeah, and this is also where students will go to make their
I think I've
submissions.
never gotten beyond settings.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So
One down. I'll go
That's
two
the
down.
submission.
Yeah.
So for submissions, so we're not really using
So-
that, but the advantage to that would be that, cause I just go in and look at their
Yeah, and it
but-
creates an archived copy of it. So the student can go on making changes to their live portfolio, but you have a record of
Mhm.
what it looked like at the
Right.
time
Or
that they
that's where we
submitted
can put
it.
in a rubric and
Yes,
so
and
forth,
where
that
you can
wouldn't
give them
want to be
feedback or
putting
assessment.
into their
Right.
portfolio.
So for the Digication students this semester, the
Mhm.
4 or 5 instructors that are
Mhm.
using it, we will have to ask them to submit their portfolios this way. 'Cause
Right.
we're gonna have a mix of WordPress and Digication.
Okay.
So we have to
Mhm.
remember to instruct the instructors to get portfolios from their students submitted, so we have
Mhm.
Yeah.
archived versions.
And when the students click on submit, they just have a list of their assignments.
Mhm.
So once they, I don't have any right now, but they would just click on the assignment and then it
Right.
takes them to this
Mhm.
page
Mhm.
where they can choose whether they're gonna submit
The whole
all of it
portfolio.
or if they're just gonna be submitting individual pieces. So that's where in the assignments that you might set up,
Yeah.
you can say, you know,
Right.
just select that cover letter page for this one.
And your instructions will be available for them here per assignment, so
Right.
they'll be able to see what.
Right.
Then we had one question about that. Um, where is it? It's somehow, the assignments are not listed.
Oh, I think they wanted them grouped by course,
Yes. they
which
want the assignments
I think
grouped
that's
by
a great
course,
suggestion. Yeah, I think it's a
Because
great
otherwise, they're
suggestion.
just, all the assignments are listed, and
Mhm.
if they're a lot of courses.
Right, if they're in a lot of courses, that could
Yeah.
get confusing, yeah, and they could have the same names and things, so I think that's a great suggestion.
If, and if you already said this,
No, that's fine.
the submission, so if they submit, there's certain things that we're still doing in assignments in CoLab
Mhm.
that we're grading in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But then we can just do that with the submission tool in this way, but for grading papers, making comments.
So in
People might have been talking
Digication,
about that one, I can't
yeah,
remember.
so in Digication, there's some instructors that have had them starting to put their writing right into the portfolio instead of them having traditional documents.
Mhm, mhm.
We do provide a conversations tool that allows you to make selections on a
Mhm,
portfolio
mhm.
page,
And I
so
did
your
have a
feedback
couple
there.
questions about that, but.
Yeah, this is more open
Mhm.
kinds of
Mhm.
assessment. Within the assignment workflow,
Mhm.
a student can go, I have a lot of portfolios here, but a student can go directly to a course.
Uh-huh.
And again, they're gonna have a list view
Uh-huh.
of each of their assignments.
Mhm.
Instead of submitting a portfolio, if you ever wanted them to just upload a file,
Mhm.
we do have that option here.
Mhm.
You could download the file and do track changes or commenting in Word and then re-upload it
Mhm.
back to them with
Which is pretty
the
much what we're doing now, like the
reflection step.
Dropbox.
It would be like,
Mhm.
or assignments tool, we call that.
Mhm.
So they can submit right here, they can also just type, right here.
Yeah,
also,
they're
the
in that rich text
editor.
option, they
paste
could
it in
They can
there.
paste it in
Yeah.
there, just give it to you directly,
Mhm.
as opposed to submitting a portion of the portfolio
Mhm.
with some template structure.
Mhm.
Cause then, so if they put their draft in there, they paste it in, and I want to make comments.
We
I
don't
don't know
have,
comments
yeah,
in
we
the
don't
like-
have that kind of functionality in the
Mhm.
assessment area yet,
I just have to go in and put it in.
yeah.
But if that were there, then it would be the best of both worlds.
I know,
Yeah.
Because then they could take that, react to the changes, and then take the text and put it in their
yeah,
portfolio, which is the goal at the end.
Well, you could add the reflection, the instructor's reflection workflow to the assignment.
oh yeah,
couldn't
you can put the text, you could copy the text and then put it into the text area and do your own kind of
So
internal
when the student
notations on
submits
that.
it to the instructor, what the instructor gets is a document, but there could be a comment or reflection box for the instructor.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Or you could
Right.
just put it, an overall comments could go at the bottom, I wouldn't be worried
Right.
about that, it's just, if you're
Oh, you
grading
wanted
within
the
Word and you're
conversation
making
type of, I
comments.
see.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
more like the conversations.
It's more like
but-
conversations but private,
Yeah,
yeah,
right,
we want it,
right.
we want this too.
Okay. You're on it,
You're
that's good.
totally, yes,
Well,
We
you
want
have the
that-
conversations
we have-
tool, so you just have to figure out how to
yeah,
use it more
Yeah,
places.
I waded in and then backed out of it because I wasn't quite sure how
Yeah,
I would-
the
I think
students
that's
actually,
right.
it's really cause the students actually get
Not too
really
late, I might still be able to use it. in the last
involved
weeks.
with it, yeah, cause I think sometimes, there's sometimes a little fear factor about having feedback open and
Mhm.
students seeing other
Yeah.
feedback that might not be positive, but when all the students are involved in it, and it can be a new thing for the students, I think it's good to have a conversation about assessment and what that means, and that it
Right.
is gonna be an open forum for everybody to be able to contribute their ideas, and some of it's gonna be positive, some of it's gonna require changes and redrafting, but it creates a pretty exciting learning opportunity for the students, and they like that conversations tool because it's so much more like a real-time kind of chat environment that they
But also
really,
if the courses that have peer editing, if you're doing
Mhm.
something like that in class anyway, it's a
Right.
nice way to,
yeah, it's a
extend
very
I think they
natural,
would feel uncomfortable with it.
yeah. Mhm.
I also was thinking that it would be great for groups to sort of gloss paragraphs in meetings using the conversations
Yeah.
tool. And that's what I was gonna do, and then I chickened out.
Right, yeah, I mean, they can start with giving feedback on something that had been written by someone not in the class.
Yeah, I know.
And
Right.
and go through that as a process first, and then reflect on that, and then start doing each other's, yeah.
There was one other question that was brought up, and since this is being recorded, I know the person who asked it will want
Yeah.
to know what the answer was, which is, how, is it possible to get, or will it be possible at some point to get aggregation of comments?
So we do have, I really like that suggestion, and we're working on a couple ideas, I don't have a timeline on it yet, but and the reason that we're kind of toying with different ideas is that some people really like immediate notification on every new thing that comes in.
Right.
Other
Other
people
than- no.
really prefer just like more like a digest summary.
Right.
So I think we need to allow for both. And we want to build in more on-screen notifications. So if you're in this environment and someone has left you feedback, that you can see that has happened somewhere and go right to it.
Right.
But
What
to
about
also
for
have
instructors?
something that they can, so for instructors
Yeah.
to be able to just have a record, because right now, there are instructors that tell student, maybe they get split up in groups of 3 and they're all responsible for leaving feedback a few times a week. And they have to go and look at all of the portfolios
Right.
and see who's commenting. But the portfolios also have their own permission settings. So some students have it set up so that they want to approve things before they show up.
Right.
So the faculty member doesn't even have access to everything that might have been added.
Yeah.
So we need another view that has kind of a log of what's been added, who added it, how many, date and time stamp. The data's all there. The data's all there.
Yeah.
It's creating a space for the faculty member to view that, and then I think also export it.
Right.
That would be fabulous, because
Yeah.
we're using that in a lot of classes now.
But that concern, though, is definitely important.
Well, it's very
because that
time
is the-
consuming to try to
student
go, there's
space,
really
yeah.
not a tracking area for
Right.
that, yeah.
Well, what I'm sensing is that you have the original sort of commitment to keeping the individual students' work private, which is primary, and you maintain that. But with the addition of a course environment,
Right, there's other
you've
kinds
started,
of tools that are needed.
changing some of the relationship, and
Yeah.
maybe the content of a course, there may be some parts of a content of a course that are not going to be matched against the needs of the individual student's portfolio.
Right,
Where the instructor has set some
Yeah.
criteria.
right,
But I would definitely agree with you that the student's privacy should not be touched.
yeah, and they should have a choice about
They should
whether
have a
they
choice,
want
yeah.
that to
Something
be
seen or not,
viewed, yeah, exactly. So, but anything involving the permissions is something that complicates the development around it, because we have to be very mindful of the different views and where it's accessed, and
Right.
so, but I completely, we need that feature. It's something that I know right now, having to view that as enormously time consuming.
Yeah.
But we also want a way that, something that doesn't exist right now that, we would, well, it was something that we played with, earlier on with the peer review as part of the assignment workflow, but learned very quickly that it needed to be more robust. It was creating more support
that was one of
questions
the
than
questions,
good, yeah.
right.
So when we were first launching this, there was a peer rubric and a peer reflection step that could be added to the assignment workflows. But we learned that a lot of instructors like to have quite a bit of control over which students are reviewing other students. So basically creating more group-based
Yeah.
reviews. And the way that we had designed it was a little more self-service. So if it had been set up for review, any student could go and choose another student, and whoever got that student first got it.
Yeah, it's kind of.
So, and then sometimes, yeah, so, and teachers wanna be able to say, I want this reviewed by 3 other students, not just one. And some of these tools exist in learning management systems, and they had just gotten accustomed to those kinds of settings, and because we didn't have that, it was just creating confusion about how it worked. So we'll be building that back in, but there were some other things that just kind of took development priority, but we would like to evolve that. So right now peer review is still happening on the live portfolios, but we'll be building it back into the assignment workflow. And there's some other kinds of assessment views that we're working on to make it easier for instructors to navigate between students and between assignments. That just involves less clicks. You can go to the next, and having the kind of grading space alongside the portfolio. And some other instructors that were using Digication for most of the work that they were doing in their courses really wanted to use the grade book in Digication too. And there's some campuses that are on board with that, and others really want them to continue doing it within their LMS. It just kind of depends. But we're working on syncing the assignments, the ePortfolio assignments with the grade book in Digication.
Right.
Other schools that use Digication as their LMS use the discussions feature to distribute things and create things within their grade book, but a lot of campuses that aren't using Digication's discussion tools want to just be able to add things from the ePortfolio assignment area into the grade book. Yeah.
I know that our LMS has a single grade porting mechanism. Are you planning on using that?
We were able to do that with Blackboard, where but it has to be a Blackboard specific assignment, so then it doesn't have all of the workflow and rubric options. But
Right.
it does
No,
allow
this would
instructor
be
to
just
add a grade
one
that
grade,
goes back. Yeah.
It's just a course grade basically submitting back.
So it basically just
It's
one
not
column or
yeah, it's one,
something.
yeah, because it
Right.
allows you to create one assignment in our LMS that is dedicated to
To
the
ePortfolio.
linking, yeah.
Right.
Whatever tools. you
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't think it's a big deal because just one grade,
Yeah.
it's just another
Well,
step to
I mean, I
submit
think
it.
development around these integrations is just gonna keep expanding.
All right,
So, that will probably be something that presents itself in the future. I mean, we would also really like to be able to tie into assets that students have
yes.
uploaded to the LMS
The
also.
LMS, right.
But yeah, we haven't been able to tackle that yet.
Well, we've gone 1 minute over our time.
Thank you so much for your
Thank
time
you.
today. I really
Thanks.
appreciate it. Yeah, it's always really fun to come to campus
Yeah,
and see
thank you very
everybody.
much.